How we doing, YouTube? This is Michael, aka Doggone John, and I just wanted to do a quick video about my thoughts on some of the knives that I've owned for a while compared to some of my newer stuff, and kind of just how I've been feeling about it. Because you know, I don't really swap knives around a whole lot like I used to. I've really kind of tried to settle with what I was, you know, what I have. I mean, and you know, it gets costly to be constantly swapping around, trading knives, and I'm also a full-time kind of nomad traveler, so I really have a hard time with mailing addresses and all that stuff. So keeping things simple and easy has been just you know, kind of the best for me anyways. So but one that I was thinking about is this one here, my McNees MAC2 or my McNees PM MAC2 3.5 inch spear point with a jig bronze titanium finish. And how you know, when I was really hunting one of these for a long time, how important and how special it was for me to get one, you know, and get it in hand, and how that's kind of changed and how I feel about it now. You know, I actually just cleaned it up recently here this morning, just polished it up a little bit, you know, and it's coming out to a really nice shine here in the morning sunlight here. And gave it a fresh edge and a strop, you know, all that good stuff. But it's kind of neat to look back at some of these old scratches and these old marks on here of the you know, on the titanium, the snail trails and stuff, and just kind of think about, you know, the time you've had with it. You know, I haven't had this one for, you know, too terribly long. I mean, I'd say it's been probably well over a year at least, maybe a year and a half. But this is one of my first high-end knives I ever owned. You know, I had Spydercos and Benchmades and, you know, kind of some regular knife guy stuff that you can get your hands on pretty simply for a long time. But this one here was special for me to get it. You know, my good friend Michael Richter, he kind of got his first. His is the Shockwave, I believe, milling on the scales, and his is a drop instead of a spear point. But he had his, and I was like, man, that is a sweet looking knife, you know, just really excited about it for him. And it looked amazing. Every time I'd take a look at it, I wished I had one, you know. And I finally was able to get myself one in hands. And my first McNees was a plain titanium flat ground version. And the detent was just super hard on that one. It was real brand new. It wasn't broken in yet. And I don't know, I just always had my eye on the jig titanium version for the longest time. I was real heavy in the slip joint knives with the, you know, how they do the jigging on the bone and stuff like that. So I was really into, you know, my heart was set on this one. So I looked around the market, you know, the secondary market, and I found this one for sale that a guy had gotten in Blade Show, Texas, you know, a few years, I think, before that. It was the Gen 2 version, so it had all the upgrades, you know, and stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to go for it, I think. So I ended up selling that one and maybe something else to get it. But this one here finally made its way to me, and man, was I happy about it. It was just really ecstatic, you know. It's still a really, really cool design, you know, and I do love it to this day. You know, that being said, though, I've tried some other stuff since I've gotten this one. And you know, my tastes have changed a little bit, maybe, I think, since I've gotten this one. I still think this is fantastic, and the action is still some of the best that I own, probably. I don't know that I have any other knives that have action like this one, but yeah, anyways, I just wanted to do a little comparison, I suppose, and see how my tastes have changed and if I still love it as much as I did when I first got it, you know. So let's bring out something else that I got. This here is my Hinderer. Oh, fail. This is my Hinderer XM-18 3.5 inch, and I also remember getting this for the first time. I had really gotten into Hinderers pretty you know, deeply, I guess. And I kind of started seeing them online, and I was like, wow, you know, they do kind of have a really cool look to them, you know, very different. You know, the design seemed ergonomic, and the materials seem pretty good, and you know, it kind of has a mixed bag reputation, I suppose, the company itself. But I was willing to give it a try. You know, I was like, you can't judge a book up by its cover before you get it in hand, you know, that kind of thing. So I traded, I think, a knife for this one here, and the guy actually paid me a little extra just to get his hands on that knife. So it was just kind of a win-win, and I couldn't really turn it down. And when I got this in hand, I was just really, really in love with it. The action was fantastic, you know, for a flipper. it still is really, really good. I think the drop shitty action on it is pretty unique and different, I think, you know, for the time. When these first came out, you know, they were pretty big deal. You know, Hinderer is some of the earlier titanium frame lock designers, or he is one of the earlier frame lock designers in the modern, you know, pocket knife game. You know, he's been around for a really long time. You know, these Striders, Chris Reeve, all that kind of stuff. So I had to try one out and see how I felt about it, and you know, this kind of knocked it up another level from the McNees, you know, in my eyes at least. Even though McNees is a newer maker, you know, he was a newer maker, so he hadn't I don't think he still has, you know, a little ways to go, I believe, with his designing and stuff. But this kind of gave me the inside look on like what a finished knife can look like, you know, after a lot of years of development and thought and all that kind of stuff. And it was cool, you know. I still love this knife. It's really, really nice knife. I have to do a couple things to it to make it mine, but even as a stock model, I really enjoy this one. You know, ergonomically, I don't know that I have a better knife that fits in the hand. Like this one here is just really something different. It's the angle, I think. You know, when you have this curvature, it just kind of sits in your hand perfect, because your hand has a natural curvature to it when you're holding something, you know. So that's one reason that I really, really enjoyed this, is the ergonomics were just really great. The choke up spot was great. You know, the steel isn't any different or better. That's MagnaCut. This is S45 VN. I don't think that there's a better in each one. It's just what you like in a steel. You know, I'm really over the kind of the steel game, you know, of trying to say that one's better than the other or anything like that. Some things are, but I know a good heat treat and, you know, design on a knife is more important, you know, overall. You can make a great knife with some of the more base, you know, the base level steels, if that makes sense. You know, even D2. A lot of people like to knock D2. It has the same edge retention as MagnaCut, though, if you do it right. So just to get that point across, they're two different knives, two different deals, two different steels, all that kind of stuff. But I was still, you know, this was exciting and new and stuff like that to me. And it still is great to me. You know, I haven't had this one for too terribly long. I've had it maybe 3-4 months. And even after I kind of had that honeymoon phase with it, I still do really enjoy it. As I said, I want to do a few things to it and kind of make it mine, and I'll probably fall more in love with it. But still, it's really great to try Hinderer out, and I'm glad I have one in the collection, you know. And then, more recently, I haven't been able to get this one out of my pocket at all. This one here is the Chris Reeve Zaan, Umnumzaan, and I love this thing a lot. I know I'm still in the honeymoon phase with it for sure, but I have really never experienced the folder like this, and I really, really love the design of the Umnumzaan. I think it's just something different, you know. And Chris Reeve knives, you know, they all kind of have a different feel to them and a different design. A lot of them, you know, Sebenzas and Cosis, and you kind of have to try what you like. But I haven't ever handled a Chris Reeve that was as good as this one, in my opinion. The smoothness of it, the action, the ergonomics, the cutting performance, and all that kind of stuff. You know, I've been using this for a lot of stuff. I've been using this in the kitchen. I've been using it at work a little bit. And I haven't had a task that I didn't enjoy using it for. And it's just such a cool looking knife. I mean, the milling I like. I think that's a little different on the titanium scale. You know, they make a lot of different versions. If I had to get one, it'd probably be the Wilson Combat Sunburst. I think that one is just particularly beautiful. But I'm just happy to have a Zaan in the collection here. And it's only gotten better the more I've used it. You know, the finish, that sandblasted rough finish that's on there, you know, has kind of started to wear in now, and it's getting nice and smooth in your hand. So it fits in there, feels really good. The action is only breaking in more and more. I decided to take it apart and polish the washers and added a little fluorinated grease in there. And I did a little KPL on the detent ball and a couple of things. So I did a little bit of tweaking and kind of try to make it mine, and it's just gotten better and better each day, you know. This was pretty much, I think, brand new when I got it. Maybe it had been open and closed and stuff like that, but it was in relatively brand new condition. So yeah, anyways, this one here has been just dominating my pocket, and I don't know, you know, I'm gonna just ride that train, you know, anymore when I find a knife, or if I get on a kick with one of these knives or any of my knives I own, I just like, you know, let's ride that train, let's see how far it goes, and just kind of just keep carrying it. You know, if every day you get up and you check out your stash or whatever, and you're like, this is it still, you know, then that's it. Ride that train, I'd say, you know, go for it. And that's kind of how I've been going for it with this Umnumzaan. You know, I haven't really wanted to go back to anything else. You know, it's so good to me. There's a few great things I really like about the design of this one, and this piercing tip is one that's really, really been handy to me. I've used this for some unusual stuff, but like I had an old pair of cowboy boots, and I actually wanted to cut off the old leather and try to repurpose it. So I was using this to dig out the stitching along the inside of the cowboy boot and stuff, and it was just super easy, super simple. Did a great job. When I do a lot of different cuts with the food prep stuff, I think it just slices fantastic. Like the hollow grind is so deep and nice and thin behind the edge. I know somebody's measured it online in a few different reviews, and it's actually thinner than I think a Sebenza's grind. So it's an impressive cutter, you know, for how big and beefy it looks and all that kind of stuff. It's a fantastic blade. It really is. You know, and I've gotten to find where I really like the pinch point on this too, for that pinch cut. You know, you can just grab your fingers in here and go underneath the thumb studs and work how you need it to work. That's one thing I really didn't care for, I think, with the Sebenzas. They throw the thumb studs, I think, somewhere down here in the blade a little bit more. You know, they're kind of out so that you can get to them. But because these are up here on the top part and they're part of the stop action, it's just easy to slip your fingers underneath there and get that pinch grip going. You know, I don't think that there's a cutting method that you can't do with this because of the way that they thought everything out. So anyways, I don't know where I'm really going with this one. It's kind of a ramble video, so, you know, I appreciate you just kind of hanging out and watching with me. But I just thought this morning, you know, when I was going through my knives, where I was like, you know, how do I feel about all my stuff still now that I have, you know, tried a lot of different things and have some different stuff in the collection now? And I don't know, you know, I think I'm just enjoying everything that I have a little bit, you know, and I have to remind myself, you know, that there's no reason to get rid of stuff or whatever. You know, I kind of have a minimalist mindset anymore, where I like to get rid of stuff that I don't use anymore, that kind of deal. So it kind of translates to my knives, where I'll want to, if I'm not using a knife or just sits around or whatever the deal is, I'm more inclined to throw it on the ground. Oh man, I dropped that totally. Anyways, you get my point, I think. I just wanting to ramble a little bit. So let me grab the Hinderer real quick, since I'm beating on it. All right, there she is. Didn't hurt it any. It's a big, tough knife. It'll be fine. So yeah, hey, anyways, like I said, I really don't have a whole lot to go over, or I'm not really going over anything. I think I'm just chatting to chat, basically. So if you like this video, why don't you like it down below, comment down below, let me know what you're thinking, if you enjoyed this ramble at all. And you know, I guess we'll see you guys in the next video, whatever I end up coming up with. So doggone out.